give a thought on why you are going to do this particular research. What is the utility of this research? It's not necessary that you have to do some research for the good of the society only. You can do the research even for your own passion, but the reason has to be there. We cannot do research because somebody else is saying this, that you should do this, or somebody else is doing, so we are doing. Then we have to define the problem or question at hand. So we need to really boil that question. If there is some typical problem given, like what is the effect of COVID-19 on the economy? So it is not necessary that we have to just look at the economic aspects of the COVID-19. We have to understand what is COVID-19, what is pandemic, why it started. Then only we can understand what will be the effect in future. Because then only, if we understand the COVID-19 pandemic, then only we will know how long it's going to go. So the problem has to be boiled. Students, when they start the thesis or start the research, in between sometime they leave the topic. Oh, maybe I'm not getting the output. No, it's not the case. So whenever you are leaving the topic in between, that means you didn't boil that question properly. If you boil the question properly, you will get the answer, or you may not get the answers, but you will know how to search answers for those questions. So these are fundamental steps, and for this step we need motivation. And there are two types of motivation: practical, like real, the which makes real sense, which is beyond the earth or ground, and the inner feeling, the psychological one, or the mindset. For practical, someone can think, okay, I will be doing the research, I will be doing the experiments, or I'll be a scientist because it's the easiest or the only way for my earth. Nowadays we can say scientists earn more, although they cannot use the money for themselves. Scientists can have grants with crores, but the salary will be same. But at least there is the satisfaction, okay, I will have 2 crore grant. So this is just fun part. Then publishing one or more paper, which is important for progressing in academic career. This is very common number of publications. But slowly the criteria, they are being more stringent. Before there used to have there should be publication. Then they put the uh, condition that there should be n number of publications. Now they are with the criteria that there should be n number of publications which are listed in this XYZ organization protocols. But soon there will be criteria that there should be n number of publication which is going to have impact factor of this. And beyond that, the impact factor from only Thomson and Reuters. So these conditions are, they are forthcoming. We can foresee that these conditions will be there. Then research motivation could be obtaining a patent, which is obviously the best way for a scientist to become rich and famous. Like Alfred Nobel, having patent, getting commercialize it, the scientists, the academicians, the professors, the assistant professor, associate professors, they are earning in crores with their patent. That too straightforward. Then there could be the motivation which is which arises due to the peer prestige. Like my friends, they are doing research, then they are doing excellent in the research, so I must try something. In MSc, that guy was not even knowing what MR means, but now he's progressing like anything. He became NMR expert, and I, who was gold medalist in MSc, doing nothing. So this kind of peer pressure is there. Then looking up to someone or trying to be like someone, maybe the maybe in family, that someone could be anyone. Then there is a motivation which comes from the heart. That is inner beauty of the subject. Some subjects we like, but for us, I can really comment on this because I experienced this. I was like this. We used to have chemistry credit courses, and there used to be seminars arranged, and all the seminars were given by the Nobel laureates. Because in Europe, it's not difficult to find Nobel laureate for monthly, one Nobel laureate for the seminar. Two Nobel laureates were in our institute, in our department. So they were having best network for that seminar series. And we used to find, like when we were new for the seminar series, we found that on third or fourth bench, there was a old person who used to ask very critical questions to the Nobel laureate. He was around 85, 90 by age. But he used to ask very critical questions, and that in a very strict manner. And we never seen him in faculty forum. In never ever we saw him in the university. But he used to be there for the seminars. And once in the break, we just couldn't control the curiosity. We asked him like, how hi, how are you, and all those. So we came to know that he was not an academician. He was a bakery owner. He was running a bakery near to the university. And he was asking the questions because he used to read the journals, chemistry journals, because he used to like chemistry. This is what we say liking a subject. When we ask the students, even in classes, when we ask which book you like, when we say a book which somebody can like, we cannot think about some science books. We think about the literature. I mean, nothing bad in that. But if we like the literature, then what we are doing in the science? I mean, I won't say that if somebody likes literature, he should not work in science. But just to see like how we like some subject. If we like some subject, then we really need to check that topic. This is what we need to have original and carving of that big dreams. Then somebody may get impressed with the challenge of the subject. Someone really likes the trouble. Someone really likes difficult topic. Then someone likes to read for the intellectual pleasure, so they can work in the science or they can do the research in any subject. Then, as the good old days, spiritual or religious state of mind, if you see carefully the ancient research, we can find the research used to be on whether God is there or not, whether ether is there in the universe or not. And these research topics were related to their religion. Still, there is scope. Then, inherent human spirit of adventure and curiosity. We are working on difficult topic to satisfy the adrenaline rush. We like adventures. Adventure doesn't mean to jump from some top or something like that. This is also adventure. Go into the difficult topic. Enter in the field on your own risk. Don't care about what will happen. So these are some inner feelings which make someone getting motivated for the research. Then you define the topic. This is the key problem all students, I mean, irrespective of their stage, they face. If someone wants to choose a research topic, he waits that somebody will give the research topic. But the research problem or research topic it might be called in many of forms of qualitative research. But here, if you see on the slide, I purposefully highlighted the U's, all the U, red and underlined. Qualitative research is the topic you would like to address, investigate, or study, whether descriptively or experimentally. It's the focus or research for engaging your research. It should be reason to engage in your research. It is typically a phenomenon or challenge that you are interested in, with which you are somewhat familiar. So research problem is something which you have to create. You have to think about it. It is not that someone is giving to you their own problem and you are working on their problem. That will not be called your research. This is what common problem is faced when the young scientists are submitting their research proposals. Because now everybody is well aware. They first check what you worked during your PhD and which research proposal you are submitting. If there is some connection in between the research topic of your PhD and the research proposal, it's not supposed to be good. That means you are submitting a research proposal which is the PhD research given by our supervisors. So if we are having research proposal on the same topic or similar in the same area, that means we have not chosen our own field yet. Somebody else has chosen our own field. Our research topic, our own. So there are some stages while defining or establishing the research topic. Usually, the research topic is something you have some knowledge of with the personal experience or something. Then you may want to talk to teachers or administrators, psychologists, or whatever the stakeholders associated with that research topic. You may find interesting idea, and that too which will have some social significance beyond your research project. So these are the stages while finding the research topic. Once you found research topic, you have to narrow it down. It's like going off on a goose chase. That means you have, that is what we call boil that problem. You have to narrow it down really, because problem cannot, if the problem is very vast, the research is very difficult. So it's better to pinpoint that problem, exactly where you have to work on. That is called the narrowing down of the problem. Then what are the characteristics of a good research question? First, the question should be very specific, clear. Then it should refer to a problem or a phenomenon. Then the research question should reflect the intervention in experimental research. So whenever you are putting your research topic, that topic should be self-explanatory. That which type of research or which type of experiments will be carried out to define this problem or to address this research problem. Then we have to note the target group of participants. If the research problem is related to some social sciences, if the research problem is related to, let's say, linguistic, or if the research problem is related to some surveys or something like that, then we have to be even specific for that. Hence, identifying a research question will provide greater focus to your research. So finding the research question, finding or defining a research problem is also a process. If you follow that process, or if you have done that process with whole your efforts, then your research will be automatically in the line. And quite significantly, a well-written research question will also shed light on the appropriate research method. So the problem or the research topic will be self-explanatory. That what kind of research will be done in under this topic. Just by reading the title of the thesis, the referee or whoever is reading the title of the thesis, he will understand which type of work will be done in this case. So we'll move little bit. So this was all about, in general, the research, like how to define the problem, or if somebody want to start with their research group, somebody want to be a researcher, somebody is already a researcher, or somebody is in between, they are thinking whether to be a researcher or not, whether I am researcher, I can be a scientist or not. So for that, this was the discussion, like how we can define someone is a scientist. It doesn't have to be that position or that designation. An agriculture worker can be a scientist if he is experimenting in his own fields, and that too they are the ancient scientists. Their fields or their topics, they satisfy the needs of whole world. So when we have to narrow down, here I just given some information about like how the chemistry, just the topic, is divided into different branches. But honestly, if you are working in some research topic, it is nowadays it is very difficult to define in which subject you are working, because each subject has now divided into multiple subtopics or sub-subjects. Like before there was just the chemistry, then they separated the engineering aspect and science aspect. From the science aspect, they divided it into organic, inorganic, physical. Now organic is divided in, I don't know how many chemistry, organic chemistry, bioorganic chemistry, organic electronics, organic materials, then medicinal chemistry, bioorganic chemistry, different types of branches depending on which area. So the area is being narrowed very fast. Let's say we are working on material chemistry, but the material chemistry, it has n number of aspects. Here are few examples. Even molecular materials, they are called materials. Advanced polymers, they are also material chemistry. Sustainable materials, biomaterials, nanomaterials, and don't know how many materials are there. But we found that okay, it sounds really nice to be a material chemist. So we have the scope to choose the fields. I learned BSc, MSc in chemistry, MSc in organic chemistry, done PhD in organic electronics, postdoctorate in molecular machines. While working in as a project assistant in Pune, I was working on the medicinal chemistry. While working in Basel, I was working on proteins. And then I realized that okay, this was okay. I would really like to share, especially with the students. While working in Basel, after working 9 to 10 months, I realized that I'm not getting interested in that topic. Actually, it was a PhD position, and I was not really enjoying working with the proteins and their ligands. So it was quite boring for me. So I asked my supervisor, I'm not getting interested, and I want to change the PhD. It was a risk. Then he was really a gentleman, a good guy. I will be thankful for him forever, because he told me that you start searching your own topics or your own interest in some other group or other university. If it is done, then fine. Otherwise, you can continue here. And fortunately, I got my interesting topic, which was in organic electronics. I chose that, and till now, I'm happy with the research. So this is how your interest grows, but it is compulsory that you must travel, you must change the fields, or you must take essence of each and every field wherever you get. Then only, if because we were with the background, we didn't have essence of such fields while doing the bachelor's or master's. It is not the fault of system or something. It is the infrastructural loss. So this is how it goes. So here is the example with the fields we are working with, like organic electronics, functional dyes, molecular machines. Now, in these organic these fields, there are some subtopics we have chosen to work on. Like in organic electronics, we work on singlet fission and solar cell fabrication, dye sensitized solar cells. Then functional dyes, as I am working in the department of fibers and textile processing technology. So we work on smart textile aspects. For that, we need the functional dyes. And in that functional dye, we got interested to work on red edge effect. And for molecular machines, we work on multi-component nanorotors and gears. Now, when we read this name, we feel, oh, the fields are very fancy. Singlet fission, very few can tell. Red edge effect, then multi-component nanorotors and gears, that too at molecular level. So they sound very difficult. If I would have read this when I was in my master's, I wouldn't have go further, really. But this is the key, like singlet fission. This sounds because we never experience or we never read about this phenomenon. That's why we found that phenomena, which is that it might be very complicated, but it's very simple. Since school days, we are learning when we provide energy to the atom or a molecule, it goes from ground state to excited state. And we are learning this very basic aspect. We learned that while coming down or while coming into the ground state, the electron stays in between. This also we learned in masters, the triplet states. So we are studying the triplet states of the molecules. And I will tell you how we are utilizing it. Even though this is established research, there are around 15 to 20 research articles from US, Germany, or those. This is new field. It already started. Then red edge effect, which is simply which can be called like excitation of electron to different energy levels. This is we are using in functional dyes because we see color due to the energy absorbed by the electron to go into the excited. So we are changing the excited state level. That means if the electron is going, let's say, to 0.6 electron volt distance, we are making it 0.8 to go on 0.8. And then we are checking because based on this distance, the color of the object is defined. So we are making the object to absorb different energy so that it can change the color. And that is we are terming as a functional dye or smart dye, which can change its color. Then molecular machines, not complicated at all. Simple isomerization of a azoic functional group, cis trans isomerism. But we are taking this isomerism into a higher level. We are calculating the work carried out by this movement when the atom is going from trans state to cis state. There is some movement. So we are taking benefit of that movement only. And for molecular machine, it's simple complexation, decomplexation of the metal organic complex, pyridine and 110 phenanthroline, copper complex. This is complexing, decomplexing. The R here, it will be a huge molecule. I will show you in the picture. These fields are very fascinating. Now, why we turn towards the organic electron, whole world turned towards the organic electrons. Due to their benefits like the synthetic tolerability, means you have the choice to synthesize according to your needs. In multifunctionality, the solar cell can also work like a light source. Low cost processing as compared to the silicon to get the pure silicon. Then most important flexibility and compatibility to the flexible substrate, so that we can fix these organic electronics gadgets on the substrate whichever we want. The best example nowadays, commercialized example, is the Samsung iPhones. The R&D chief was working in Rice University for his postdoc, and his lecture or his supervisor's lecture was there on the TEDx. At that time, I think I'm talking about 2012 or 13. At that time, he was working on this artificial intelligence and all those aspects. So this is how the organic electronics came into the picture for whole world. But how it started? We all know when current flows, that means a electron flows from one end to another end. So current flowing is nothing but the flow of the electron. If it can move in a metal bar, why can't it move in a polymer if it has an electron of a capability to move from one end to another? So Professor Alan Higger found that in polyethylenes, these double bonds, the double electrons in double bonds, they are easy to move from one place to another. So they doped that polyethylene with iodine. That means they added extra electron. So they made the electron uncomfort, which were present in the polyethylene already, the pi electrons, and they started moving from one end. So they measured that the conductivity is there. Polyethylene has aromatics, and we took benefit of it. But there was a problem. Here we can see in the pyramid of energy, benzene is most stable, but as we go on increasing the number of rings, the stability drops down. And that is due to the sharing of that sextate among all the other rings. So as the sharing increases, stability goes down. To answer this, they suggested two ways. One was lateral expansion, means increase the number of sextates, and another was use of heteroatoms, that means those nitrogens, which increases the stability. So we worked on it. We dreamed a ribbon-like molecule, and which is even my actually this is the work we carry out during my PhD. My supervisor is still working on it, and this we want to do with artificial synthesizer. That means human interference should not be there. The machine will do all the synthesis. Just it has to add two components, carry out the reaction, then wash, again add, remove, wash, like this fashion. So there should be continuous automated synthesizer which can synthesize these ribbon-like molecules. But during the PhD, we developed these cores which have inherent properties which can be built organic electronic devices. This is simple pyrene, and we developed the pyrene with different substituents to bring in different properties or stabilities, solubilities, which were the key issues while addressing the organic electronics. And then we prepared some molecules like with the evaporation and all, and we could literally visualize those with the high resolution SEMs. And these molecules worked very nicely. They are not commercialized because the efficiency is very poor. And so the world is working on enhancing the efficiency of these molecules now. Then the next topic was the organic light emitting diodes. Now, when we say some organic molecule, we sent the electron from ground state to excited state. Now we are bringing it back. And while the electron is coming back into the ground state, at that time it's emitting the energy which was absorbed. And if the energy is emitted in like a flash, that is fluorescence. And if it is emitted slowly in continuous fashion, that is phosphorescence. And that is due to the change in the excited state while performing the inter-system process. But the major problem with organic molecule which we were working was the pi stack, because the molecules were flat like a ribbon, as we can see here. They are flat molecules. And when the molecule is flat, at that time they stack on each other. So while the electron is coming in ground state, the emitted energy will be absorbed by the neighboring molecule. We cannot really see that. So to address this, we put crowd on those molecular backbones. So the backbone becomes crowded, then there was the twist. So the molecule was not planar, it was twisted. And when the molecule was twisted, it was not possible that it will stack on each other. So they were quite separated, and they give the fluorescence. Electroluminescence we check, there are positive results, although the yield is low. But this is how we thought about the organic light emitting diodes by thinking simple phenomena, how the electron comes from excited state to ground state and what are the troubles while putting it into the category of light emitting diode. Now, when we talked about the singlet fission, we said about the triplet state. While coming down, the electron stays in the triplet state. In the traditional solar cells, the electron goes into the excited state and it works like a electricity electron, that electron which carries the electricity. But when it is in the triplet state or the state which we desired, we are making that electron to come at the half of the distance. So the remaining half energy will be shared by another molecule. That means by absorbing same energy, we are getting two electrons excited. If two electrons get excited, then we can say that we are getting double current. With one photon in traditional solar cells, we used to get one electron with one photon. But here we can get two electrons with one photon. So we are doubling the efficiency theoretically. And this is the fabrication of dye-sensitized solar cell. This I am showing purposefully because we don't have any fabrication facility, commercial fabrication facility we don't have. So, and we didn't use any synthesized color. The color which we used was from bacteria, fungi, even some fruits like strawberry. We used those colored pigments and we fabricated a dye-sensitized solar cell. For dye-sensitized solar cell, we must have a spin coater to get the uniform coating on the glass plate. We didn't have the spin coater, so we removed the CPU fan from the computer. We stuck a glass plate to it. We started rotating. It works very nicely. And we built the dye-sensitized solar cell in this fashion, which worked. So we got the light. We switched on that light based on this small dye-sensitized solar cell. The idea was really nice. And while working on this, the characteristic which I told, you have to be really good observer while doing any experiment. So while working on this, when we were preparing the conductive glasses, at that time we found that we are getting very uniform layer of conductive material. And now we have submitted a proposal to RGSTC for a energy production, hydrogen production plant. Because these conductive plates, it is very beneficial that we prepared these plates on a gas burner. Commercial plates, which if we want to buy a conductive plate, you have to pay at least 1300 for a microscopic slide. And we measured the cost, which is around 8 rupees maximum. So we are going to commercialize this with some startup or let's say how it goes. But at the same time, we also realize that we can use in water dissociation for production of hydrogen, and we use this very efficiently because traditional problem with those hydrogen generator was the etching of the catalyst, and we got a technique of making those layers permanent while we were working on this dye-sensitized solar cell. So it was very beneficial for us. Now this is just the example of those functional dyes. Now this is the same dye, but just the incident light is different. Longer UV, which has different wavelength, shorter UV, and simple daylight. If we can see three different colors. This is how we are making the same molecule or same material to look different by changing the absorbing wavelength. So we are planning to use this not only in textile but also in currency or taggings, because such materials they used for the security purposes as well. So let's see how it goes. So this was all about the functional dyes. Then the most fancy field, I hope I have little bit time, minimum 10 minutes. Okay, so molecular machines, actually the molecular machine
Yes, sir, go
concept
ahead.
started in, okay, thank you. Actually, the molecular machine concept started in the world. We may think like, oh, how they designed these machines or something like that. But if you look carefully in almost all the fancy areas or the so-called very sophisticated research area, you can find that those areas were already present in the nature. They just mimicked it. The molecular machine is the same. This is how we miss the details. Everybody learned how ATP is produced. Our body converts ADP into ATP. Adenosine diphosphate gets converted into adenosine triphosphate. We know the reaction, we know everything, but we don't know how exactly the machine works, how exactly it gets produced. Actually, there is a molecular rotor in that enzyme, which is called ATP synthase. This ATP synthase is nothing but a molecular machine. So this stator rotates. This is the blade, the stator linker, which supplies the extra electron or a hydrogen, and that diphosphate gets converted into triphosphate. So they mimic just this. This is okay. If someone thinks the ATP synthase is complicated, here is the helicopter. Helicopter has two components: stator, which stays there, which is stationed, and the rotator, which continuously rotates. In the same fashion, they prepared the molecular rotor. Now here the four with the four arms is the stator, and the single two arm is the blade or the rotator. Now if you see the yellow dots in the arm and the blade, that yellow dot is nothing but the copper. Molecular machines is working, that is, or if someone says the molecular machine is working here, there is not much wonders. It is just complexation and decomplexation of this copper and this phenanthrolene, pyridine copper phenanthrolene complex. So if somebody interested in the chemistry, this is how the stator looks. It took me around 1 year for the synthesis. Synthesis is hard, but the concept is very simple. And here the complex forms, these pyridines, substituted pyridines, and these phenanthrolines in the station. They form the copper complex. In between there is a hinge, this DAPCO. And if you put two atom of copper, the blade will stay there because it will get complex, it will get locked into the station. You add extra copper, let's say 3 equal. Now the competition starts because the copper without blade or just with the phenanthrolene will be looking for the complexation. So it will attract the pyridine and it continuously rotates. And they measure the rotations with NMR. Till our masters, we learned with NMR we can illustrate the structure. Not only that, NMR has many applications. One of the application is to measure the movement of the molecule. And this the basic experiment they have done is with the formaldehyde, formamide. They calculate the rotation of that hydrogen. So this is how it goes, and it is nothing. If the chemists are interested, I can go a little detail how exactly they measured this. Actually, they focused on the proton signal of this. We call it like the ninth proton. With the numbering, it comes ninth for us. This Burin proton, and it gives the signal here around 6.9. Now there are two scenarios just to make you understand like how the scientist thinks. Now this is idea of the Nobel laureate who got the Nobel Prize in 2017. So there are two scenarios there for this phenanthrone. First scenario is the pyridine molecule is there, and another scenario is the pyridine molecule is not there. So those two scenarios are explained here. If the blade is moving very fast, it is difficult for the NMR machine to detect those two scenarios because it doesn't get that much time to detect when the pyridine is there and when the pyridine goes off. So it gives single signal. But if we reduce the temperature till minus 75 degrees centigrade in the NMR machine, then we can get two different signals. Now these two different signals are for those two different scenarios. One signal is for the complex phenanthrone and another signal is for the uncomplex phenanthrone. So the environment of that diurine proton changes there. Hence it gives two different signals. And then with the software, we can calculate the speeds. And we reached up to 80,000 with the methyl substitution. But even the group is, in SIGINT, they reported 97,000 rotations per second. So this is how the simple ideas, simple complexation, decomplexation, the NMR machine with the simple experiments. Now there is no different setup attached to the machine to measure the speed. It is the same characteristic protocol. The characterization protocol is same, just we are reducing the temperature. But we can get this much of information. And now in ICT, we're working on this. I couldn't control my greed to work on this topic, although I worked in postdoctoral research. But with the permission that I have to come back to India, leaving that topic unended, so I started here also. But now we don't want to have just the machines. Now we are designing the molecular gears. And I don't know how many years it will take for the synthesis, but we are working on it. Let's hope after synthesis, I mean, every scientist will hope that his experiment should work out. So we are hoping the same. So some complicated structures are there we are working on, but it's always enjoyable to work in these fields. And now the simple molecular machines, the azobenzenes, we are working them. We are making some dyes which can attach to the textile surface. And we want to irradiate light on those dyes to have different molecular movement on the textile substrate. So this is just an example. We call them like molecular windows, which can open and shut based on the light. So the challenges to work in this field, first is the stability of the molecules. Now, every night before sleeping, I just pray that my molecules will be stable there in the fridge, because since March, we didn't open the lab. Apart from some emergency access due to this COVID-19, we were working on fabrication of some masks or something. Then functionality in solid state, this is very important. Please understand, whatever molecules we have shown or whatever molecular machines they prepared, they characterize in the solution form. If someone can have the molecular machine in solid form, he will be awarded with the best prize. Then quantification of work by collective sub-nanometer structural change. Because whatever changes we are getting, now the simple this change, this is very difficult to visualize. This is at subatomic level, sub-nanometer structural change. To quantify this to an observable scale, that is the challenge. Then for textile, the major challenge is the durability and washing fastness. Now we are trying to fabricate the solar cells on textile surface to reach to the remote area with energy or with light, electricity. Even WHO or they have already supplied some school bags with the solar panels. Similarly, that, but we want to have that in April, to have solar panel designed on the pocket, which will charge your mobile while it is in the pocket. So this is the dreams. Let's see how it goes. So before ending, I must thank or acknowledge for the opportunities and collaboration, for the opportunities indeed, FRIAS Germany, my supervisor, Professor Mateo Alonso, who is currently in Polymat. And I was there to learn the fabrications in Spain. Then Professor Schmittel from Siegen, and now for Institute of Chemical Technology, which provided me excellent cooperation. Then Department of Science and Technology, of course, for the grants with different projects, including Inspire and TechUp IN Phase 2 from World Bank. It's actually the institute level grants, but it was given for one of our project in which we are having the functional dyes. And for Inspire, we are even Inspire, Extramural, and Early Career. We are working in singlet vision. This is what I was telling you. Like, we got really good response, not only from the person, but also from the funding agency. We submitted the proposal based on similar concept. But the experts, they knew what it takes to deal with the singlet vision, how much time it takes, and how the idea is materialized, so that they can understand that this research needs grant. So we are really thankful to them, obviously. Now our motivation, not only ours, but almost all the organic electronics researchers' motivation is the statement given by the famous physicist Richard Feynman. It was actually a lecture named "There is plenty of room at the bottom." So even we have discovered many things, we have researched many things, but still there is plenty of room at the bottom. So still we don't know how much extent is still yet to be explored. Now these are the hardworking students with me. Akhil, who is MTech, he is working on the functional dyes, but he is completely with the different aspect. Then Shaima is working. Shaima and Sanjana both are MSc. They are working on the azoic colors. Then Pranay, who is working on the functional dyes. That means the dye should bring extra property to the textile material. Sushil, who is working in the singlet vision on the Inspire project, he is dealing with the pentascenes. Zahir, he is working twice. That means he is working experimentally as well as theoretically. And also he was the one who worked in this emergency access on the electrospinning of some antiviral polymers on mask. Shruti, who is MTech, who just started working. She is interested in organic electronics. Let's hope best for her. Anil, who is working on Azasis, and also he is the one who worked on the fabrication of solar cells as well as the hydrogen production project. Brahmadev, who recently started with his MTech along with Shruti, he is working with Pranay on the functional dyes with auxiliaries as well. So thanks to all of you for being patient. This is the city. You can see the greenery, which was not there some years back. They planted the forest artificially. This was not a project by government. The people in the city themselves, they started planting the forest. So thank you all. If there are some questions or some discussions, some suggestions, please. We'll be really happy if we get the suggestions or whether we are going in the right direction.
If someone has any question, please ask. Unmute yourself and please ask the question if you have any. Okay. Uh, I must thank to Dr. Sandeep More for enlightening us with the given topic. Really, I must say, sir, you have opened the new dimensions for the new research, new budding researchers, as well as the students who are aspired to be the next scientists in this area. And I'm very happy to share you that it's a really great pleasure for us to have the participant all over the country. When I was seeing how many number of participants have registered for this seminar, then I could not find any single state from which the participants have not participated. It's a really great pleasure for us all. Finally, hello. Finally,
Yes,
I
yes.
invite Dr. S.P. Gaikwad sir to propose a formal vote of thanks. And before that, I must share one thing to all the participants. The feedback link will be shared on Telegram group. Okay, and we are very regretful for that. We could not share the link on this Zoom web platform. So please go on the Telegram group and fill your feedback form, and then you will get the e-certificate. Over to you, Gaikwad sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can I audible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon to everyone. I am honored, lucky to have the opportunity to give vote of thanks on this special day. On the behalf of my college, I would like to thanks today's resource person, Dr. Sandeep More sir, for accepting our invitation and share your knowledge with us. Really, sir, very good knowledge you have to share, specifically that are interested to the researcher and those who are doing the PhD work. Really, sir, your knowledge is helpful and fruitful to all the participants, those who have joined the webinar using the link. We are really enlightened and your knowledge. May I express my sincere thanks to Honorable Principal Dr. Deepa Sirsagar ma'am for their continuous encouragement and motivation to conduct this webinar. I also would like to thank our Vice Principals of the college, Dr. A.S. Hange sir, Dr. S.V. Sirsagar sir, and PG Director Dr. R.M. Gulve ma'am for their support. I would like to special thanks to the convener of the webinar, Dr. Pandit Khakre sir, Head Department of Chemistry, Organizing Secretary, Dr. Raju Machale sir, my colleague Dr. Satish Maulge sir, and non-teaching staff of the Chemistry Department for their continuous efforts to success this webinar. I would like to thank all the participants from all over India for their active participation in the webinar through Zoom platform as well as through the YouTube link. I would like to thank Dr. Siddharth Jadhav sir for hosting this webinar through Zoom platform. Again, not last but the least, I would like to thank all the dignitaries for sparing their time, precious time for us and gracing the occasion with their presence. Thank you very much once again. And by the permission of the chairman and principal ma'am, the seminar will finish and end here. Thank you so much.